time, at least perhaps for now. Welcome to AcoNight. It is TRB Live, and thank you so much for joining us, whether you are with us live or you're watching on our TRB YouTube channel or listening on your favorite podcast app. Thank you so much. We're here to have a good time talking Star Wars as we close the book on the Acolyte Season 1 series. Season 1, we'll get into that in a little bit. But with me, as always, is Lacey. And, of course, our guest, as we always have guests on these shows, is the Whiskey Jedi, former co-host of A Certain Point of View. He's also an avid baseball fan, unfortunately, of the Oakland Athletics. But I will say this. A Certain Point of View was my favorite Schmodown reaction show, and they were outstanding. So I look forward to seeing more from this guy. But I'm glad he's here with us in the base. Jake Berlin, welcome to TRB. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. Thank you guys so much for having me. This is awesome. I'm excited to talk this episode. Thank you for having me on this episode too, because this,
it was a good episode.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the Acolyte episode 8, uniquely titled "The Acolyte," directed by Hanel Culpepper, written by Jason McAuliffe. And closing out this show. So for anyone joining us live, thank you so much. Super chats are available if you'd like your comments about this episode read on the show. Just a reminder to everybody, please share this on social media and make sure you're subscribed to our channel, podcast feeds, all that stuff that you hear from everybody who does this stuff. But that's our version of it. And of course, our patrons. Thank you so much for allowing us to do this show, including Nerdy and Nice, TRB Live, all of our other stuff. If you are able to support us, head over to patreon.com/TRB podcasts and support what we got going on. But beyond that, just have a good time. Sit back, relax, hop in the chat, or just chill and enjoy. We're going to talk all about this episode. Before we get to the Kelnaka scale for the final time, just a reminder, a little bit later in the show, not too much later, we're going to be giving away the final number in the Sith code. And I will give you instructions on how to enter to win some pretty awesome dark side Sithy items. All right. Jake, Lacey, let's get into this thing on the Kelnaka scale. What we do here is we rate the episode from 0 to 10. Kelnakas, of course. Rest in peace. Halves count. And then we'll give our score. We'll hear what our patrons had to say with their score, and onward we go. So, Jake, you are our guest of honor. Acolyte episode 8. Well, first of all, set the tone for our audience. How have you been enjoying the Acolyte? Because it's been a very mixed reaction from fans all over. So where are you at to give our audience an idea heading into your score for this one?
I'm above average. I must say that I have kind of had a tough time over the series overall with some of the pacing, which I think is like the main argument that most people make. As well as a few other small things. I've kind of been up and down as of recent, but overall I like it. Like I said from the very beginning, and I kind of stood through the entire time, I am so much enjoying seeing brand new Star Wars that no one has ever experienced before. Whether it's absolutely incredible or just above average, or it's a fun time to watch something brand new that new people are creating. And so I try to be as positive as I can from it. And, even with all the technical stuff, I enjoyed it for the most part.
All right. Right on, man. All right. So for episode 8, what did you give this on the Kelnaka scale?
I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. I felt like it gave me most of what I wanted and was hoping for from the episode, because going into it, I felt like there was a lot that we needed to answer and kind of, wrap up. And for the most part, I felt like it did that. There was just some minor things that I didn't care for as much as others. But I feel like 7.5 out of 10 is a very strong finish for a show that you had mentioned has kind of had a bumpy road with most people. So.
Yeah, I think that's a solid score. Lacey, how about you? What did you give episode 8?
Why don't you go first? You have me go first all the time. You go first.
All right, the pressure's on. No, 7.5, same as you, Jake. I think most of my episodes have been in the 7 range. So I've enjoyed the show. I thought the finale was solid. It left me still wanting answers to a lot of stuff, which is a good thing because it's, looking forward to the future, wanting more. But at the same time, I feel like there was a lot of things that happened in this show that probably didn't have to happen, where they could have spent more time on the things I want to learn more about. Why did Chimere fall to the dark side? Was he Lord? Was it him on his own? Is that, is Plagueis his master? Is he just stalking him and he doesn't know he exists? There's a lot of things I need to know.
Does he just live there? We don't know.
Yeah, does he just like creeping?
No, I'm saying, did he just happen to go on the island that guy lives on? He's like, hey,
you know
man,
what it is?
I thought I was the only one here.
The whole Plagueis thing, I figured it out, and we only saw him for 2 seconds, and we're assuming it's him. I think everyone's assuming that's
also
Plagueis.
Spoiler alert. Like you came to a show where we're talking.
Oh
about
yes. Please don't click on Acolyte finale spoiler review.
I don't think I put spoiler in the title,
but
I only have so many character limits, guys. I'm sorry.
So check this out. So I'm looking into Plagueis' eyes for the 2 seconds that he's on screen, and I noticed that he is having dreams of a pillow slowly lowering over his face. And that's what he's thinking about this whole time. Because all this darkness and like, oh, it's Plagueis, is ultimately going to end with this dude getting waxed in his sleep by Palpatine. So his story has a dismal ending. And I look forward to seeing that hopefully in live action as well. But yeah, so 7.5 for me. That gives us a 7.7 for TRB.
I didn't give my answer.
Scale. Oh, you didn't give yours. Oh, sorry. See, I'm looking at the notes. I had you in front of me.
That's
then
a great.
You flopped it on me.
2 7.5s and you got a 7.7. That's amazing math. I gave this episode an 8. I thought my 2 favorite episodes of the season were episode 5 and this episode. I thought that Chimere was the standout with Soul of the 2 characters that I genuinely had some connection with and or cared about and wanted to see more of. Everybody else kind of, I feel like we didn't get enough time with them, but at the same time, they stretched this out so long. I still strongly believe this should have been a movie and not a series, or they should have released everything in like 3 episode chunks where it was like a hour and a half instead of these like, I don't know, disjointed pieces
like
of the
Sherlock
story.
Kind of thing, like mini movies.
Yeah, or Stranger Things or anything. Nowadays, yeah, sure. It felt anyway. I'll go to what I liked. What I liked about it was Soul and Chimere. The fighting was intense. It was awesome. Their fight scene was one of the best fight scenes in Star Wars. And I really loved the shot on social media that Manny's wife put up of him watching the scene live on TV when it aired. And he's like this. That. He's like on the edge of his couch watching himself, and she just like pans over, and he's so he doesn't blink. He's like he's tuned in to see like how they cut it. I just think like he cares about Star Wars a lot. He's been interacting with fans this whole time. He's been so excited to do the whole big reveal of like, I'm the bad guy. And then you go back and watch the interviews where like he was trying so hard not to give stuff away. But yeah, I thought this episode did wrap some stuff up, but I'm going to be honest, didn't care about Amanda's characters. I didn't care about the twins. I thought they were not likable. I have no interest in seeing their story continue. Like if they got murdered or she got murdered, like right after that shot at the end of the season, I'd be like, all right.
Did either of you for any second think that Osha, when they were hugging, was going to kill her with that lightsaber that she grabbed?
It crossed my mind very early on.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I was like, are they going to go
I thought
there?
they were going to combine them at some point. I thought
that
there was
also
be
crossed
some
my
mystical
mind.
thing where they're like, well, now's the time where we can, let's come back together as one or something, because they kept talking about how they're not 2 people, it's 2 halves of a person. So I figured like, oh, this is going to happen like that Reese Witherspoon movie where her ghost goes back into her body. I don't know. I just thought it was going to happen and it didn't. Anyway.
Is that Legally Blonde?
No, it's
it's with Mark Ruffalo.
Yes, thank you, Jake.
Oh, last 13 going on 30.
No,
that's Jennifer Garner, John. Come on.
He's being annoying. The last time I brought this up, Jake, no one knew what I was talking about. So I appreciate so much that
I know what you're talking about. I don't know the title, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. Ghosts of Girlfriends Past or something, right? Isn't that it?
Nope.
Something Heaven. I'm blanking out there.
Is it Just Like Heaven?
Just Like Heaven. It might be. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Where he's in
Just Like Heaven. Yep.
Well done, John. All right, but let's go to our
sixth guess. We'll edit this out.
John's favorite movie, actually. He's just playing a game.
So okay, Lacey, you have to accept that what happened with the score thing, because I did have you above me, and that's what happened there. But we do have the score, and the score is. Accept?
I just said I wanted to go. I didn't say that you were wrong.
I'm saying I didn't purposely skip over you. All right. 7.7 is the score. There it is.
I took the background out this time. Don't worry about it.
So yeah, solid score from us. I think 7.7 is a very good score. Our patrons were just a tick lower. They checked in at 7.1. But again, a very interesting thing with the Patreon score is we actually had people who love current Star Wars give some of these episodes zeros because they were so upset about what they were watching. But we also had 10s. So it is a 7.1, but more than any other show that we've done, a lot of extremes here. A lot of people.
Oh my gosh, it was so divided.
It's amazing. Yeah. So interesting score there, 7.1. We have a couple of comments, and then I know we have some super chats to get to before we get to the Sith code, and then we're going to just dive right into this episode. But the first comment is a 10, which came from Danny, Chibigon 89. And Danny said, 10 Kelnakas for me. While the story ended in a great note, they several story leads if they venture to a second season. I'm amazed that we got Plagueis and Yoda. Loved the score, loved the lightsaber duels, loved that we got a reversal on the Twin Destinies, and loved that we got Oshamir ending that we didn't get with Reylo. Is that the thing? It's called Oshamir now? Is that official?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the name. Yeah.
All right, I gotta mute that on Twitter. All right.
The Phantom name. You're so mean.
I'm just kidding.
No, you're not, though. You're not. You're not. Come
if
on.
I mute, do I not bleed, Lacey? Come on. All right. Then we have Kendall Gellner, who checked in with the opposite end. This is what we're talking about here. 2 out of 10 for me. And Kendall, this dude walks around Disney with Millennium Falcon jeans and stuff. Like Kendall is
he
Star
dressed
Wars.
up High Republic for the Galactic Star Cruiser
cosplayer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So Kendall said 2 out of 10. I did not like the way the Jedi were portrayed in the end. Vernestra is completely opposite from the books, and the whole episode just had too many things happen that made no sense. Even Pip is permanently lost. I gave it 2 only because trying to force a lightsaber into your saber shorting helmet was a super cool reversal. But superb lightsaber fights are not enough to make a show. He's heartbroken that this episode undid all that he liked before, and he doesn't know that he would continue with further seasons. Wow. For any of our community who knows Kendall, for Kendall to say that, that's very strong, because Kendall's usually likes most things. But there you see the two spectrums. We have a 10, we have a 2, and then a bunch of us sort of in the middle here. But very interesting. So thank you, everybody, for that. All right, now it's time for the Sith code. So all season, we've been giving away numbers each episode for you to collect. And the prizes are the Star Wars Return of the Jedi Emperor Palpatine 3D bust from Gentle Giant, which should be at every person's foyer when someone walks into your home, in my opinion, including myself. And then also the Black Series, the Stranger Electronic Helmet, which is set to hit store shelves in 2049.
Next summer, next August.
Next summer. So those two things are heading your way if you are the Master Sith, and you can unlock the code. Now, to enter to win both of these, you need to take all these numbers, and I'm about to give you the last one. You need to unscramble them into a date, month, day, year, and find out what that date means to Star Wars and the Sith. And we will begin accepting guesses at 12 p.m. noon tomorrow at resistancebroadcast@gmail.com. Just so we're making it fair for our audio listeners and people who may not be able to join us live. So 12 noon East is when you could start submitting guesses. Do not send it sooner. It will not count. And all you have to do is give us the correct order, so AKA the date, and why that date is important to the Sith and Star Wars. And if you're the first one, quickest hands, like Chimere, you will take home both of these amazing items. So thank you to everybody who's been playing along. Hope you've had fun. And listen, if you don't win, plenty more giveaways coming, because Lacey, I think, has an entire bedroom in her house that is boarded up because there's so much Star Wars stuff in it.
There really is.
Yeah.
Please take this stuff from me. My children need a place to sleep.
Exactly. All right, Lacey, let's get to these super chats, and then we'll dive into episode 8.
Yes. I got distracted by someone's comment. I apologize. First up is Christy. What up, Christy? Thank you so much for the super chat. Said, I bought a new home and moved, so I missed the last couple of live shows. Super excited to catch y'all live for the AcoNight finale show. First of all, congratulations on your new home. That's so exciting. There's nothing like having your own place. It's such a awesome feeling. I hope you're going to decorate it the way you want to decorate it with like cool stuff. That was my favorite thing, is like, I'm going to paint this room this color because I like this color. Just made my kitchen green.
And moving is horrible. So the fact that she has it in the past tense is like a wonderful thing.
Now you're done. You're done.
Yeah. Because my wife and I are talking about, like, Lacey, I've been telling you, we're like,
I know.
We're just
looking around here.
Yeah, we're Googling houses and stuff.
Be paying that house off in like 2067.
I don't want to move this stuff, and like, I don't want to move. But anyway, this isn't about me. Thank you, Christy. Appreciate it.
Darth Snips, what up, girl? Which, by the way, Darth Snips has the most adorable squirrel area in her yard with a piano.
Yeah.
Not to be like a creep, like I'm watching all your videos, but it's super cool. All right. I am only able to stick around for the first 30 minutes or so, but just want to say, love this community regardless of opinions. Everyone is kind and respectful. Love it. Also loved the Kyber bleed. Epic. Can I just say, when that moment happened and I was watching the show last night, I literally out loud, I was sitting at my computer when I watched that. I went, oh, John's going to hate this out loud. To the point that my husband was like, what happened? I was like, they just let a crystal. And my husband's like, what?
I'm definitely, that's my crotchety part of my fandom.
You have said that for years. You're like,
they're just weapons.
Thing. This is bleeding's the dumbest thing.
I don't know if I said it like that, but
that's what I
just like, good guys use blue and green and bad guys use red.
That's how red comes to be.
Yeah.
It was very cool to see. It was really, really cool.
Look, I'm learning to live with it. It's like when you get paired
that
with
was the budget right there. Honestly,
you don't like.
That was the budget they spent on the show, was them doing that whole thing.
That one shot was 179 million.
Yes. That and them going to like the fancy island that was clearly like in a remote location.
And the Yoda puppet. Yeah.
Which, yes, absolutely. Yeah. Next is Semperfi Danny. What up, Danny and Mark? Danny said, I can't help but feel this episode would have been better if we got to today's episode sooner and they had progressed from there. Right? I feel like this felt like a mid-season episode. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, wow, we've taken a dark turn. Where do we go from here? And then, like any normal show, I always say Buffy because that's like a show that I really stuck around with for years. But when you got to that mid-season finale, you're like, oh, 22 more episodes coming, in the other half of the year. Whatever it was, 15 more episodes.
That's true. Yeah, all those old shows had like a ton of episodes.
Yeah, it was once a week.
Yeah,
Smallville was 24 episodes a season.
Yeah.
Wow. And were those like the hour longs?
Yeah, it went to like 214 episodes, I think, something like that.
What?
Yeah.
So that's when you could actually say this is a filler episode, because there were episodes that you were like, this adds nothing to the overall story, but it's a fun little mission on the side.
Side mission. Every second of it.
Nice. Yes, me too.
Are you, Jake? Right. Are you? I know it's nothing to do with Star Wars.
Superman.
But are you pumped about Superman?
I'm excited for Superman. Yeah.
Right on, man. Thank you, Danny.
You and John both. John's so hyped for Superman. John's getting me hyped for Superman. Dave Ford's up $5. Thank you so much. Says this show will eventually grow on me as I rewatch it later. I've been hard on this show, but I want to see another season because it's really not bad. That's a great attitude to have, David. I appreciate that. Thank you for your super chat.
Thank you, David.
And then Christian's up. What up, Christian? He says, ironic. Plagueis could give others screen time, but not himself.
That's great.
Thank you. Geez. Thank you. And that's
all right. Let us hop into this thing, and let's warm up the jets here by going over our favorite moment from the episode. So whether that's a favorite shot, a favorite line, a favorite scene, we always have our favorites in Star Wars. So Jake, did you have a particular standout moment or line or shot from this finale?
Yeah, there are a couple, but the one that stands out the most, it comes from the Chimere Soul fight, and it was very early on in the fight when they're in the corridor and their lightsabers are hitting the walls. I instantly had Revenge of the Sith flashbacks.
That's cool.
Of Obi-Wan and Anakin, because that's my favorite Star Wars fight of all time, and just a cool little callback to that moment in Star Wars history between these two characters. It was pretty cool to see, and not to mention that it was great. Like, it was a great fight too. So, just visually, the lightsaber battles in this entire season and show have just been incredible.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought when they were fighting that whole thing was going to crumble as they were like dragging through. I was like, they're going to fall through into that hole we've been talking about. The
hole. What does it mean? They never answered that question.
Maybe the hole's where the virgins comes from. I don't know.
Maybe, but it's like I feel like that's such a connection to The Last Jedi again. Like where she's standing in front and nothing gets answered. I hate when things aren't answered. It's so annoying.
That's why everyone's like, oh, that's why there's a push for more.
I get it. I understand.
Man, we'll see. Lacey, how about you? You're usually more of a shot person, but what'd you have for the finale?
I would not be a true Star Wars fan if I didn't say it was this one with Yoda.
Very nice.
Oh my God.
Puppet Yoda.
I still owe John a pizza. I know you don't have to tell me. I owe him a pizza because Yoda was not in the trailer. But I love that we were correct and that he had to show up in the series at some point. But I do love the kind of ear reveal, which this is very reminiscent of how they revealed Grogu in that first episode. They show him from behind the head first to show you the ears, and then they show from the front. My question is, did they get Frank Oz? And if they didn't, I'm going to be so mad. You will never understand how mad I'm going to be if they do a season 2 without Frank Oz. Like, get out of here.
You would think, right? Kind of.
You would think, but you never know. They might be like, we're going to save money. You know what I mean? Like, or Frank is busy right now. And it's like, is he busy? He better not be too busy, because they should have I want a gallery series where it tells me that Frank was the one even sitting here. Like, that's his hand.
Unless he's, in the quote unquote consultant role. But, So
that was my favorite shot. It was just beautifully done with the depth of field and his ears in the front center. It was really well done.
That's what you wanted the end of Rogue One to be with Leia, right?
Leia's moment would have meant more to me if they just handed to her the plans and then the movie ended. She didn't have to say the hope line. She didn't have to show her face. They could have just ended with the buns and you make that connection.
That's a janky face too.
I don't know if I'd say janky, because it's pretty well done. I would say that it's not the best I've seen. Like, I know everybody gives it a hard time with Mando, but I thought Luke the second time around looked great. And I don't know what people are constantly complaining about. I understand the idea of like using digital faces or not using a real actor, but like this was their way of respecting Mark Hamill while still having him involved, which, also respecting fans in a way. So yeah, I mean, I get it. I think the first Luke they did was kind of weird, but even then I wouldn't call him janky, because I know people put a lot of work into it, and I've seen janky, and I don't think The Rock as Scorpion King is on the same par as Leia and Luke in Star Wars.
I agree. Yeah.
He was janky. That's janky.
Oh, The Rock. So I guess I don't have my fastball tonight, which happens sometimes when you take the mound and you gotta, try to muscle through it. I didn't give the last number in the Sith code.
So, is that what everybody's been waiting for?
Yeah. So for everybody who called me out, thank you so much.
Wait, hold on. Did you give the whole spiel and talk through everything about when they can give their answers, but never gave the number?
That's what happened. That is exactly what happened. Thanks for reiterating. Yep.
You got on that thing.
So the last number in the Sith code is 1. So there you go. Good luck to everybody.
I'm sorry, that's really funny. You can give a whole explanation.
Like I'm only human, folks.
It's okay. It's funny. I do stuff like that all the time.
I'm on minimal sleep thanks to a certain 3-year-old who's on the dark side of the Force in my house lately. All right, so you got the Sith code number. Thanks for reminding me, everybody. Sorry about that. But let's dive into it. There's a lot to talk about.
What's your favorite shot?
Yeah, you didn't mention yours.
Man, I'm having a rough day. My favorite shot is Plagueis. It's 100% Plagueis. You know why? I never audibly say anything when I watch television shows, and when I saw the hand, I didn't even say who. I said, "What the F is that? Yeah. What the F is that?"
Imagine if it wasn't him and it was just like a bird with a weird hand, and you'd be like, "Ah!"
It's like that island's caretaker.
Yeah. Or it's just a person with a stick hand. Like it's not even a real hand. It's just. Can you imagine the build up? It's a great shot. Go ahead, John. Sorry.
Yeah, that's it. Plagueis blew my mind that we saw it. I wish we got more of it. I'm glad that it did end up there because I've been talking about that for a while. If you're going to do a dark side heavy story, it has to at least be heading in the direction of this. And I never thought the age thing would be an issue because I know Munes can, live quite long. So I think this is cool. And it also makes me realize, I guess it's a good way to segue into the discussion, is that this story can continue without it being the Acolyte season 2. It could be anything
after this. Yeah.
It's a part of canon Star Wars, and they could bring back these characters and not necessarily be the Acolyte season 2. They can shift it and do.
It's like Marvel. Movie. They have the Loki series, but that doesn't mean Loki's not in movies and doing other things.
Yeah, they can shift this to a movie. They can do a lot of things with this. Another show. There's absolutely a lot of different directions they can go with this. But
I did laugh though, really quickly, that for the people that really hate on Star Wars, I remember before this show came out, a bunch of them were like, they better mention Plagueis or show Plagueis or talk about him being in the shadows, because if they don't, this show is pointless. And then Leslie was like, okay, here's Plagueis in the shadows. And they were like, how dare you? That's not Plagueis. Why would he be hiding like that in the shadows? That's so stupid of the character. He'd be out there making plans. And everyone's like, it's just a little funny. It made me laugh.
It's a bit much. People just, if they have a preconceived feeling about something, they're going to, even something that they would like in a vacuum or in a silo, they're going to put that filter on and say, like, how dare she be the one who introduces that character?
Even though like Filoni did it, or someone else probably piped in and was like, hey, what if we did this?
Yeah.
Because they're not including Yoda or Plagueis without some type of approval from George, Dave Filoni, someone.
Yeah. Jake, did you read the Plagueis novel?
I did when it first came out, so it's been a minute. But I think it fits perfectly. I mean, I'm not someone who's super stingy about it. I think that things can be adjusted and changed, and I do think the age thing is not a factor because if I'm not mistaken, it's been a while, but I believe he says in the book at one point, in human years, I'm well over 100 years old.
I think I saw that too. Yeah.
So that could easily match up with the timeline that we're currently in. He doesn't have to be super old in this. He can be a little younger, which is fine. He's making plans, and I loved it. I thought the moment was great. I saw the hand and I audibly gasped way too loud, no way. And Gabby had turned over and was like freaking out, but I was like something was wrong. And I was just watching Plagueis be revealed on the screen.
She's
like, did someone get bombed? And you're like,
no. Like it was such a cool moment. And I thought it worked out perfectly because people who know him are going to recognize him, but people who don't will just see a shadowy figure that is going to be talked about or looked into at a later date. So it can play both sides, which I thought was pretty well done. So,
yeah, I agree. So where do we want to start with this thing? I mean, I know Soul is a big topic that's been discussed. I'm kind of upset about the whole Soul thing.
Craziest death they've ever had in Star Wars. Most brutal death I've ever seen. But I knew he was. I've been saying for weeks she was going to kill him. I've been saying that, and you were like, "No way, that would be so terrible." And I'm like, "I think she's gonna." It
is terrible.
I agree, but I knew that they had to do that because they had to have the Kylo Ren.
I agree.
Han Solo moment where they have to kill the person and say let go, and he even did the like it's okay,
which is
like,
crap.
Where Han Solo like touches Kylo's face, like the I've accepted it. They even did that. I was just like, this is literally the same. Honestly, this series for me came across like, what if Rey said yes to Kylo? That's what I got out of this series, to be honest. With prequel stuff mixed in. But I'm saying with Osha and Chimera, that's what I got. Like, if Rey accepted Kylo's hand, what happens after that?
I don't think Han Solo accepted his death, but I don't want to get any further on that.
I think he forgave his son for making a choice that was beyond what he wanted.
Yeah. I was bothered by Soul saying it's okay because he knows in that moment she is taking that final step to the dark side. So he's saying that's okay. And people can try to spin that narrative as much as they want, but I just don't like that at all. That really bothered me.
Crystal turn though after he died, like that was the moment that it then bled. So he doesn't necessarily know that. He thinks she's killing him because he killed her mother. So I took it as he's saying it's okay. You're getting what's good for you because I lied to you, or I killed your mom and lied to you about it.
I don't know.
I thought she was going to light the saber. I didn't think she was going to choke
him to death. Yeah, that was rough.
I agree with you. It was
Nestor was going to roll up and help him or something.
I was shocked by her doing it. The second it started happening, I knew it was coming from her, but I was not expecting it to happen that way because that's going down a dark path very, very quickly, and choosing to do something very quickly against a former master, a former friend, someone that she's obviously been with for a long time. It's not always good to say you like a moment when someone dies, but I really liked the moment for the character.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, I knew very early on that Soul was never gonna end well for him. Whether it was like his reputation being destroyed or him dying.
Oh, God.
Like I felt like
got the short end, huh? Vernestro's like, yo, it was this guy. He sucks.
I felt like at some point something was gonna happen to Soul in a bad way, whether he was gonna be outcasted, death, or whatever, and it ended up being the worst of everything. So
she really did him dirty.
Yeah.
But that's another thing that pissed me off. And it's like I love Lee Jung-jae so much at this point that leaving the Acolyte wish someone else played that character so that he could play another character in Star Wars for a long time.
Yeah.
So I know his story is essentially done in Star Wars, and now we get no more of Lee Jung-jae in Star Wars, really, if we're being serious.
And he didn't get to become one with the Force because they hadn't figured it out yet.
That and the Vernestra thing. She says like he was a great friend of mine. He was an incredible person, compassionate, all these things she said. And then she pins it on him. Why didn't she just pin it on Indara then? They weren't friends. She's dead. She was there. Like, let him have his legacy, sort of like they do with the Dark Knight, and say like,
because she wasn't alive when all those other Jedi died.
Soul was the last living one, so
it would have been anybody. It would have been Jackie. It would have been whoever it was that was left.
Yeah, that whole thing.
It just sucks because she pinned everything on
him.
I
hate her.
So Kalnaka dying, all those Jedi dying. She hid the fact that Chimera killed all the in the history of these situations, Soul killed Jackie, Yord, all those other people, Kalnaka, Indara, all those people.
Yeah, it's like,
yeah,
there's just so many different ways they could have handled the Jedi in this show, and I just don't. I agree with a lot of people who don't like how they were handled. And you could give us the point of view of the Sith and show how they rose without making it a cover up after cover up after cover up. Like, I thought as we were getting towards the end and sort of like the epilogue of this series that they were righting the wrongs of the Jedi and cleaning the slate, that sort of thing, where Vernestra, he was going to take the confession and Sol was going to be the fall guy, and they were going to like come clean with everything, so that we see the Jedi as, all right, they messed up, but now after 16 years, it's come to the surface, everything's all good. But she's like, nah, we're going to triple down on this and we're going to go extra cover up here. And I was like, oh,
man. I'm curious if she made that decision because she found out that Chimera is alive. Because she clearly didn't know before this episode.
Yeah, because he had the helmet off. And then how quick did he put it on? He was scared of her.
So what happened there? Was there a cover-up there that could obviously out her in some capacity?
Which we've been talking
double cover-up.
Great point, because we've been talking about this whole series how it wasn't just one incident. It's continual incidents, because that guy, the senator that goes to her, that's like, hey, I don't trust you guys. You guys are doing sketchy stuff. You're a religion. You think you're always right. And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Gotta go. And like, clearly this is a thing that they do all the time. It's not a one-time thing.
Yeah, at least maybe she does. Because Vanessa is such an interesting character, but right now I am so sketched out by her. And
me too.
The choices that she's now making and where her story is heading. Like, I'm super intrigued and interested, but I'm also very cautious on how they're going to handle her character going forward. Because you have to think, if they do a second season, or maybe if it's like a different show that's a sequel or whatever, that she has to be a main player after this decision. And her going to Yoda, like it. Yeah.
Is this 50 years before Phantom Menace?
100.
100.
It's 100. So that's another question I had is, with Vernestra specifically, when she's on the phone or talking to someone, it sounded like Palpatine. Am I misunderstanding that when she was talking to someone where she's like, yes, I'll come right there? It sounded very much like Palpatine. And I was like, how is that possible? If it's 50 years, then that makes sense. He's like 20 something. And then he could be in his 70s when Phantom Menace rolls around.
Well, he's supposed to be in Return of the Jedi, he's 88. So he's supposed to be like 50 or so around Phantom Menace, I think. Which would not put him on,
right? Would age him out of this. But I'm saying it's so weird because his voice, it was like, I remember being like,
I agree. I think it was just a coincidence. Yeah. Unless, like, who knows, the pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural, tapping into
flaw
comms through time. Who knows? Star Wars likes getting weird. But yeah, I think that was just a coincidence. But I did see a lot of people say that, and I do remember thinking that sounded familiar when I watched it. But
it was weird, right? I immediately was like, "Is she talking to Palpatine? That doesn't make sense."
I know. Yeah,
it was very weird.
Yeah. So, Lacey, you brought up that you are sort of checked out on the Osha May thing.
The only interesting part was the beginning where she was so dark that she literally cast a spell on Chimera.
Yeah, and her eyes were all messed up.
His eyes went black.
Hers too, yeah.
Yeah, and he went into that like dark upside down version of Star Wars where they like get sucked into this thing. Where at that point it was interesting just because he looked genuinely concerned for her, which is interesting because when it's a Jedi, it shouldn't be that attachment, but because it's the other side, he can have that attachment. But yeah, that was a weird moment. And when she comes out and goes, I saw myself, and you see the red lightsaber in her eyes where she's like, I saw May killing Sol. In my head, I immediately went, she didn't see May. She saw herself. She saw herself killing Sol. Because we all knew she was going to make that turn. I think about halfway through, we were like, oh, she's the bad guy.
Yeah, if they move forward with the story, I'm in the boat of like, I'm way more interested in the Plagueis stuff and Chimere,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess by association that means Osha too. But ultimately, that story is not going to have a happy ending either, because Plagueis eventually has Palpatine as his apprentice, and what usually happens, the others get killed, or the Master gets killed, and we know in that instance Plagueis doesn't get killed. So whatever ends up happening with the Stranger, Chimere, whatever you want to call him, and Osha, it's probably not going to be happily ever after. I did see, it might have been Christian Morales. He said, what if they sort of do get away from Plagueis and he starts the Knights of Ren, and that's why they use that theme? Like, maybe
there was a reason. Yeah,
maybe that's in her notebook somewhere, and I like that idea, so props to Christian for tossing that out there. But I don't think that's going to be a happy ending, and a Sith love story just seems very volatile. I could see them like Plagueis doing something to make them tragically kill each other in a Romeo and Juliet sort of way. There's a lot of things they can do with this story. So when I'm looking forward, like, from this series, I like don't really care what they do with May at this point, and Osha is almost by association. Like, it was supposed to be this focus on these twins, and I liked almost everything else. Like, anytime there was a scene with just them that flashed from another thing that was going on, I wanted to go back to what was going on. That's where I went. I don't know how you guys felt about it, but that was me.
Yeah, I kind of felt the same way about the two of them. I also struggled seeing them in the same scene together because sometimes their dialogue was really bad between the two of them. I don't know if it was
horrible. It was blatantly another person fighting with.
Yeah, I don't know if it was because they were trying to obviously portray that it was the same person playing, two people, but
yeah,
I just didn't connect very well. I think I did early on when we first met and kind of got to know them very quickly, but then everything shifted into a very just left turn direction in where the story was heading. And I agree. I think I'm interested in everything else outside of them, especially after the finale and May no longer having her memory. Like, to me, that's like, okay, well, why is she now still a part of the story? Like, she shouldn't be a part of this anymore if she doesn't have her memory anymore. That's kind of what I stand.
And it felt like, I mean, I could be wrong, but it felt like Vernestra was trying to see how much she remembered.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, to see how much she can get away with covering up. But also, it may benefit them for trying to unlock certain things from her while keeping other things buried, which also adds a layer of not so cool of a Jedi thing to do. Very manipulative. So again, like, bad. And I'm not a High Republic reader, but I've heard from people that this is a different Vernestra. So I'm assuming, however the High Republic ends, maybe they'll give us a better idea of why she's sort of become this way. But boo Vernestra, for sure. It's like I posted the GIF today of Dumb and Dumber with Lloyd pointing at Harry in the diner, like, it was him. And it's like, she just like totally took Saul, and granted, he's dead, so it's like, oh, I'm dead, whatever, I don't care. But she just like was like, yeah, it was that guy. He was just bad seed, just bad. That's a bad apple. And he was a bad Jedi. Saul was not a good Jedi. He was too obsessed. He was very Sith in a lot of his motivations because of his passion and care for Osha and May, but mostly Osha. And I think that never left him, and that sort of evolved his Jedi path in a bad way, and he was never able to recover from it. So it's weird looking back to the beginning of the series when we see him teaching that class, because from that moment, I'm like, remember Lacey? I was like, this guy's going to be the one example of the noble good Jedi in this show.
You had this whole thing. You were like,
so all the other Jedi, we can compare them to him and how it's supposed to be. And then as all these things start happening, I'm like, oh, man, because I really wanted Lee Jung-jae to be like the Obi-Wan for this series. And he just wound up being this guy who had one massively bad moment that haunted him literally for the rest of his life. And
I think it was a bunch of miscommunications, and he just got caught up on it. He couldn't run from it any longer. And so he got used to the betterment of the Jedi.
Yeah, it's just it's a very like Soul's story is one of the more understated, like tragic stories I've experienced in Star Wars. Like there were like when he was getting killed and slow deaths in anything. Like
it was brutal, very passionate, very close, intimate,
yeah,
long.
like when Adam Goldberg gets killed in Saving Private Ryan, like those slow deaths really mess me up. I don't like watching slow deaths because I'm like, somebody do something or try to get out of it. Like do something. And then he's just like, it's okay. I'm like, oh my God. I was so upset by that, which I guess means it was impactful. And I did care about Soul, but he was probably the only character that if they were killed, besides Kel Naka, you know, because I love Wookiees, I was upset about. Like if anyone else died, I don't know that I would have cared that much because I wasn't as vested in these characters as maybe I should have been.
Mm-hmm.
But Soul, I really liked him. I was rooting for him to figure it out. I think that's like the tragedy. That's the thing that's going to stick with me in the show. Like that's going to affect me. Like when I think about it, I just feel really bad for that guy.
There were just so many moments that didn't add up. Like him in the forest where he was sensing things, and you were like, "Oh, the bad guy must be someone he knows." And I don't know, it was just weird. Like there were all these moments that you were like, "Is this?" the truth, or what could it be? Or like throwing all these theories out. John, you and I talked about a lot going into this series how they advertised it as a mystery.
Yeah.
Like Leslie Headland was very much like, the Acolyte isn't who you think it is, which in fact it is exactly the person you think it is. It is the person on the poster, the person on the promo boxes, the person in the commercials. It is exactly the person who is the Acolyte that you think it is. And we had so much fun this series, more than anything else, coming up with these crazy banana ideas of like, could it be this person who came back from the dead? Like, this is why this person did this. And secretly someone's in, behind the scenes, which obviously we now know it was Plagueis, but more than that, we thought it was someone within the inner circle of like an actual murder mystery. But this entire series was very straightforward. There was no mystery. It was like, could it be Chimere? Oh, it literally is Chimere. Okay. So Vernestra hit him with her whip. Oh, she did hit him with her whip. Oh, is it Plagueis? Yes, it is Plagueis. Which Leslie had said, oh, I'm not going to bring in Bane or Plagueis in this series. I'm going to wait for another season maybe, but who knows? And like, it was a blatant lie. Like he's in the show.
They wouldn't just kill Carrie-Anne Moss in the present time in the first episode. Oh, yes, they did. They Drew Barrymore'd her and Scream.
With a tiny blade.
Yeah.
tiny, itsy bitsy blade.
Like letter opener. Like, dear Indara, you're dead.
Yeah. The kind of, it looks like the knife that I use to like cut cheese when I'm making cheese and crackers. Like it's like
the charcuterie board knife. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I just take a bite out of the cheese. That's all.
It was just very, just rocking the whole block. What are you doing?
Rock the block, baby. Dirtbag mode.
No, it was just, I guess, and this is going back to fan expectation, and I guess I fell for it this time, is I was expecting it to be this thing that blew my mind that I didn't expect or couldn't even think of being like, these people are so much more creative than me. I can't even think of what the answer is going to be. And it was like, no, literally, this is the answer. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, it's not bad, but you pitched this as a mystery. It wasn't really a mystery. The only big twist was Chimere, which was very straightforward that it was him. What do you guys think?
Great, though.
I had very similar thoughts. I struggled throughout the 8 episodes. I think I mentioned it earlier, but the writing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't really fall for a lot of the writing that I felt like it should have been much stronger with characters who clearly had depth, but they weren't going that direction.
Mm-hmm.
You had all these brand new characters that we've never met before in a brand new world that we've never seen before. And like you said, it felt just very flatlined. There was no real meat to it. Everything that we were watching was just unfolding as we were going, and we didn't have to think about what was happening, or it was just there. And I liked it. Like I enjoyed the show, and there was a lot of characters that I really enjoyed, but I struggled, and I had a very up and down kind of just watch with it because of certain choices the characters were making. certain things that were happening in the world, dialogue, pacing. And I expected a lot better because I expected Leslie Headland and company to kind of have a very tight script and direction. And it just felt like it was off. And it's unfortunate to say because I liked it, but I felt like it should have been better.
I agree. In looking back, like for me in any movie or TV show, like the number one thing that pulls me in is believing the relationships between the characters. And I feel like this show didn't even give us a chance to have that. It's like I just got to know Yord and I started warming up to him a little because I was like, oh, he's just like this weird Boy Scout. I mean, he's by the book. I get it. All right, he's cool. Dead. Jackie. Oh, I can't wait to see X-23 with a lightsaber, like Leslie Headland said. Saw it, dead. And then like Soul and like not getting to see him and have, expand upon more of his relationships or even maybe more time with him and Osha or something to make the death at the end feel more just sad from that relationship standpoint. I felt sad for him. I didn't feel sad for their connection. I didn't feel Osha and Soul the way Soul's dialogue was telling me I should feel.
Agreed.
And so
I didn't like her at all, to be honest.
I know. I think that might be the nucleus to why this wasn't a B for me.
And she talks like this the whole time.
It's the twins
entire series. She talks like that. I just want to be like, do you need a lozenge? Do you need a glass of water? Because she's like, you don't understand what I'm going through. And I'm like, I think you need to cough.
And that's it.
It's like a weird voice.
Gargle a little salt water and you'll be all right. And then
when you watch them try to go between the two characters in the last episode, like sometimes May would talk like that and then sometimes Osha would talk like that. And I guess they're doing the play of like, well, they're the same person. And when one goes light, the other goes dark. And then the other goes dark, the other goes light. But it just, to me, it was so like the delivery on the lines was not great.
By the end, I almost felt like I'd have a post-it be like, okay, May is in Osha's outfit, Osha's in May's outfit. Just remember that. Okay. Like because the characters, I get it that they are one person or what have you, but I just feel like they fell flat and they were supposed to be the nucleus of this whole thing. And Chimere being so cool was sort of like it pulled like a Simpsons where like when the Simpsons came out, Bart Simpson was it. And then people were like, wait a minute, it's Homer. Homer's the real good character on the show. And then they shifted everything over to Homer. It's like this show was like, it's about these twins and front and center, Amandla, it's her show. She crushes it. And then people introduce Manny Jacinto and they're like, never mind. I want this guy in every scene. So then when they did the flashback after that big episode, people were like, I wanted more Chimere.
Yeah, I felt more for Rey in The Force Awakens in the first 3 minutes we see her with a mask on than I did for Osha and May this entire series.
Yeah, unfortunately, I agree.
Even the point where you really don't see her talk much, she, gets her food, goes home, sits there and eats, has the scratches on the wall. I got more out of that sequence from Daisy Ridley and the story itself than this girl that had her mother really like murdered in front of her.
Lawrence Kasdan writing versus other people.
I'm sorry. Like that's a problem. If you're main character of the show, I don't care what happens to them. But yet the cool guy that's killing people, I'm like, yo, give me more of that guy. Like have him kill her and move on. Like
right. I agree. Lacey, let's see what the TRB community has to say in the super chats, and maybe they could spurn some tangent discussions for us.
And he's like, I need an acolyte, a pupil. I'm like, don't take her. You have all these other people. Like her? I don't know. Anyway.
Plagueis is like Arrested Development when they're like, her?
This is the best we got. Really?
Her?
Well, just okay.
It's Anne. Her?
Yeah, it's Anne. Her? Anne?
Her?
All right. We have a super chat from Bar Snobs. Thank you for the super chat. Said Chimere is very old? ? A puppet connection with plagues like Snoke and Palps. Mama Coral Ghost. Return of the Jedi tease to Palpy Spirit ? You know, poetry. ... Thoughts. What do you think, John? I think Chimere is old, but not as old as you think he is, because that would be a weird relationship if they are going that route with Osha and him. You know, you don't want like old man and young girl type stuff and probably weird people out, but I do think he's old enough to have some type of relationship with Vernestra at some point. So I'd assume he's probably in his 30s. I think they established that.
I would say mid to late 30s is my guess.
Yeah. Which is what Kylo was. Kylo was 29 when Rey was 19.
Yeah, like, because what episode was that where he was like, yeah, I was a Jedi a really long time ago? Like, they made it sound like more than 20 years ago.
That was the naked episode.
I think that was 6.
Yeah. And Vernestra, on Wikipedia, it says she was born, she's like 150 years old around the time of the Acolyte. So I don't know, like, if he is, which they haven't confirmed whether he even knows that Plagueis is there or not, but if he is his apprentice and he's looking for the Acolyte, which makes sense, we know Plagueis's thing was immortality and living forever, and we talked about the age potential and delaying aging and all that stuff. Like, could he have taught Chimere stuff like that? And maybe Chimere is older. Does he not age when he has the helmet on and he's just connected with the Force? Maybe he is older. Like, Star Wars,
you think this is
weird.
Some Tuck Everlasting stuff? Like, he looks like he's 30, but he's actually
Age of Adeline.
Yeah.
I don't know. But it's interesting nonetheless. I don't know, Barsnub. You asked a lot of questions, but
Mama Coral just died, apparently. She probably died with Kelnaka. Just dead.
That's weird too, because everyone was sort of put, like, Jake, were you like eyeing her as a suspect at any point? Everyone seemed to be
very early on, very early on, but then I kind of shifted everything to Chimere once we really met him and everything.
Yeah.
And then I really just got the Plagueis vibes early on. Mama Coral is super interesting because she obviously like floated away or dusted away or whatever, and we haven't heard from her since. And it's weird because, at least from the story that we know of right now, if they do continue, it doesn't really go back in that direction. And so if they ever, like, if that's never touched on, that's another unanswered thing that just happened that never felt necessary if it isn't actually touched on. Because the flashbacks, like, she was such a big part of everything. And they blatantly showed her, like, leaving and disappearing, and then you're never going to touch on that again.
Yeah, and then you hear her voice too.
It's another one of those things in the writing that just bothered me. So
the prevailing thing with the witches and the whole creating life and the virgins creating them into two and all that, like, I'm thinking about it now. I didn't think about this prior, but as you were talking, Jake, I was thinking about that moment when at the beginning he does get thrown into that realm with Osha, with the black eyes and stuff. Like, he clearly experienced something that shook him. He looked chilled. He looked scared for the first time. Something he had never experienced before.
Mm-hmm.
That leads me to think he is aligned with Plagueis, and he's going to go back to him and be like, look, she is enamored with me. I can pull her in. She can show us things we haven't seen yet. And that's the temptation, all that stuff, the allure for power. What if that is how Plagueis learns about the manipulation to create life, is through what he experienced through Osha, like osmosis, and then he sort of shows him? That could be an interesting angle. I know that might upset people because I think a lot of people who are like diehard Plagueis people are like, really, he's gonna learn it from these witches on Brendok? That's where this all came from? And it's like, yeah, maybe it did, man. It's magic. Like, no one knew what this was. When we heard it in Revenge of the Sith, we were like, that sounds so stupid. But now it's like, that's the book. That's the book of Star Wars now. So you just got to let this stuff breathe. You got to give it time. And that could be an interesting way as to how Plagueis learned that secret, which Palpatine wanted to tap into and got as close as he could at the end of the saga.
I mean, Chimere disappears several times while they're on the island and goes somewhere and leaves Osha alone. So maybe he's just stepping over into another room being like, hey, man, you want some soup? I made some soup.
He's like, you up? Plagueis is like, yeah. You're not holding a pillow, are you? He's like, no. He's like, all right, come on in.
I had the same exact thought. I saw someone actually put, and I'm not going to take credit for it. I actually saw a conversation online about it, and I'm very curious on how the majority of the community is going to react to Plagueis learning about creating life from Osha and May. Like they're the reason that all of Plagueis and Palpatine and Anakin, it's all coming from this. So I'm very curious how everyone's going to react to once we eventually get that story with Plagueis and that does get confirmed, or if it gets confirmed beforehand. I do not see that going over too well.
Also, Plagueis was chilling on the island. That means he was like, yo, man, just go get naked and like see how it goes. Like, or he was watching him get naked. Or maybe they like bathe together.
They have their own baths and their own caves and stuff.
Maybe. He's just like, hey there.
Plagueis is showering, and you know when people open the curtain, the hand just sweeps the curtain open.
I need to make a fake hand on a stick that just... Anyway. Thank you, David Ford, for the super chat. Says Disney better read my mind and give me what I want. Okay, I hope they do. For the super chat. Next is Troy. What up, Troy? He said, at the end, I loved it, but the season felt like 1 or 2 episodes of House of the Dragon. Things are too drawn out. I think they cut it up into 8 to be like, we need 8. And the editor's like, I can give you 5? And they're like, 8.
We need those 8. View counts.
8. Well, that's a great point, Tony. Then we have Mike. Thanks for the super chat. Said, I would love to see it get a second season, but make it all about the Sith. I wanted to like Sol, May, and Osha, but didn't connect with them. It did feel like more on the Jedi side than a Sith story. I feel like we were just getting started with the actual Sith
I
stuff.
thought when we were on the island, I thought the show was going to be like that, where we're spending more time with the Sith and check in with the Jedi. Like, I thought we were going to be from the point of view of the Sith and like understand their conversations and really get a perspective on how they operate. And we didn't.
And what they know about the Jedi and stuff. We got glimmers of it from Kylo.
Or how they view the Jedi. And,
this is essentially the setup story for that.
Yeah,
totally. Thank you so much, Mike. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Then we have Steven. What up, man? He said, I'm late. Well, to make it up, somehow Palpatine returned. Don't say this, Steven. Someone in the chat was joking around being like, what if Osha and Chimere make Palpatine as a baby? And like, that's the story. Goodness. Like their baby is Palpatine. And I was just like, first of all, that's hilarious. Second of all, please no. Why does everything go back to Palpatine? I hate it so much, but that's where we're at.
You know why it goes back to Palpatine? Because he's the greatest villain in Star Wars history.
They can't come up with anybody else.
Because every time they make a villain now, there has to be an understanding and an empathy as to why they're bad. And it's like, they need to give us another bastard like Palpatine for us to root against. And
Moff Gideon was that guy for a while, yeah.
And then they're like, nah, he's going to try to kill himself when Luke shows up.
And then he's going to put on a helmet and be like, I'm a bad guy. Look at my boots.
Yeah, look at me now. I'm tough.
Anyway, thank you, Steven. Next is Troy again. Thank you so much. He said, maybe my comparison isn't fair and I love the overall story, but too slow. I love-hate relationship with the show. I mean, that's fair. He then follows it up with, thank you for the super chat, by the way. But power of 1, power of 2, power of many, Jacinto, I need. I know. Power of
that's the Manny.
People have been saying power of 1, power of many.
Yes.
Who's going to write that song? Who's going to record it?
Whoever wrote Agatha All Along, I would imagine.
Actually, those are the Anderson Lopez's, which did Frozen. Fun fact.
There you go. They're going to write
it. Sneaky Zebra, what up, man? How's it going? He said, the relationships were so underdeveloped, miscast. They could have flipped Carrie and Rebecca Vernestra felt like she had a friendship. She never had a friendship with anyone. That is a great point. I would have loved that casting if you flipped Carrie-Anne Moss with Rebecca, who played Vernestra.
Mm-hmm. But
it might sound terrible. I might have cared more.
Carrie-Anne Moss is not married to Leslie Headland, so
and that is
you gotta bring in the bacon.
That is true.
No, I'm joking around. She was well deserved and all good.
Maybe, but it also helps that your wife is doing the show. Let's be honest. Will of the Forest, hey man, how's it going? Thanks for the super chat. I said, yo, TRB, if they revisit this story, do you think it would be an Acolyte season 2 or make another show altogether? Kind of like how Mando and Book of Boba Fett intertwine. John, you just brought this up earlier, so Will of the Forest and you are on the same wavelength. You want to just re-say what you said?
Yeah, I can totally see them taking this story, understanding that it may not. Now, look, we didn't talk about this that much on this show because I feel like people online are tired of it. People everywhere are tired of it. Like review bombing and stuff is real. We see people rating these episodes before they come out on IMDb, and it's just like, it's so stupid. Mm-hmm. But there is, even in our community, which are people who love current Star Wars, there are people who were like, this show really bothered me. I am not interested in season 2 of this. And I'm telling you, these are people who are diehard current Star Wars fans saying this. These aren't haters. So I can absolutely see Disney and Lucasfilm saying, we like where this hands off, but we're going to take the characters and the open ends and shift it to this. And whether that is, like you were saying, Jake, this is the setup for the Sith story. Maybe it's the Plagueis show, and that show can end with him meeting Palpatine or something like that. I could totally see that going down, and I would be totally cool with that. Because I am like, $180 to $200 million went into the show. I do not see them, especially because this was greenlit before COVID, probably before the strikes or around that time. Things are not being greenlit the way they used to be. I would be shocked if this series, as it was made, gets greenlit for a season 2 with the same budget. So I think they pivot. I think they take the characters and stuff like that and just sort of move on to a sister show or whatever you want to call it, or maybe a movie. I don't know. What do you guys think, Jake? What do you think? You think they're going to get season 2 on this or what?
So I'm kind of like a 50-50 split. One like I'm with you on everything you're saying as far as like the budget and everything, and the show. To me, if they continue on, if they do a season 2 or another show, whatever it may be, I think Plagueis has to be like fully involved at this point. Now that we saw him, and that to me is no longer an Acolyte show. Like the Acolyte's been chosen. We have the Acolyte now. You can easily shift in a different direction and title it something else, but it continue that story. At the same time, I'm curious if studio heads would be like, well, people will be confused if it's not titled The Acolyte season 2. You know, they do that classic thing where they don't want to confuse viewers. If I had the choice, I would retitle it. I would go in a different direction. I don't know what that would be. But how it finished, how it all ended by showing Yoda, by showing Plagueis, by Osha officially stepping in to become Chimere's apprentice, Acolyte, whatever you want to call her, that now shifts into something completely different. That is no longer the Acolyte story.
Good call.
So, yeah.
Yep.
Great point. Thanks, Will the Force. I saw him in the chat saying, oh, I came in late. No problem, man.
Dude,
we got you. Yeah. He says, appreciate you repeating yourself. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Will.
Next is Frank Grande. What up, bud?
Frank?
Thank you so much for the super chat.
Dude,
so
thank
kind.
You, man.
He said, do you think Plagueis is Chimere's master, or possibly he was hunting down Chimere? I know we all have the rule of 2, but that doesn't mean there aren't other Siths in the galaxy competing with each other to become the top 2, if that makes sense. I mean, that is a possibility. Maybe he's like, yo, I don't want you. I want the girl. We don't know.
Jake, what do you think, Jake? Do you think he knows he's there? Do you think he's his master?
I think Plagueis is Chimere's master. and I've said since we met him that I've always thought he was the apprentice. I did a full show on it on my channel, that I thought he's the apprentice.
Nice.
I think there's a more than likely chance that Plagueis is testing him as an apprentice, and he doesn't know it.
Yeah, I like that.
And I could see Plagueis having him kill Osha.
And I was going to say Chimere and Osha are going to fight it off. One of them is not making it out of this, and one of them's going to earn the right to be Plagueis' like official apprentice, or apprentice right now until obviously Palpatine comes along.
Which is
that's going to be crazy. Like they attachment stuff, like they develop feelings, and then he's like,
"Yep,
you have to murder her. Show me your."
That's the way of the Sith. Like that's what they do, and especially right now, leading into everything we know that comes in 100 years, that this is setting all of that up, and we know that the rule of 2 exists. Chimere even said it, power of 2, and I think it was episode 6. I think he's being tested. He may not know it, and they're going to have to go face off against each other at some point.
That is really interesting to me, because I was just thinking in my head, I'm like, we've seen Sith apprentices die where the master takes on another apprentice, with Maul, and then Dooku becoming the apprentice. Because of that speech, I got to go back and rewatch the Revenge of the Sith speech again, because he does say he taught his apprentice everything he knew, and I'm interested in seeing Plagueis do similar things that we saw Palpatine do, but Palpatine having done it just a little better, because he learned from him and knew what worked and what didn't. So maybe we see sort of like how Palpatine threw Darth Maul to the wolves and said, like, look, if he kills them, awesome. If he dies, I am going to get this guy, and he's going to be my apprentice. I could see Plagueis, like you were saying, Jake, thrust those two against each other, see what comes out of it. Whatever benefits him is key. And then, as we know, ultimately, neither one of them end up being a Sith master, because he's still the master when Palpatine comes along. So I think that's excellent.
And we've kind of seen this before. Let's not forget that Palpatine at one point, not all at the same time, but through a number of years, he had Maul, Dooku, and Anakin as apprentices. And sometimes they were at once. Like Palpatine was trying to seduce Anakin while he had Dooku.
Yep.
He was seducing Dooku and probably had Dooku while he had Maul. So it's not unlike a Sith Lord who is very powerful to take on multiple apprentices to test each other to see which one is more powerful.
Yeah, it's interesting that those parallels are going to be cool, and I hope we see a lot of that.
Thank you. I hope it goes dark. I hope it goes so dark, and it.
That's the payoff I want, is dark. We're already there.
Expecting. Yeah. I want a Sith show. Like that's what I was expecting.
Right.
I hope it goes that way now that we know Plagueis, like he's canon now. Everyone can stop crying about it since he was mentioned in Revenge of the Sith. He is officially canon. Now go for it. Like just unlock it all and just go for it.
Yeah, I agree.
Next we have Sneaky Zebra again. Hey man, thanks again. He said also the awkward Padawan. Why is he on missions?
Mog?
That's very weird.
I loved that character.
Is he Vernestra's Padawan?
I think so.
Is he?
What an interesting
he seems
choice
like an assistant, honestly.
Like an intern.
Yeah.
What an interesting choice for Vernestra's Padawan / assistant.
Yeah. Maybe because what happened with
it's
Chimere,
like Kenneth in 30
she's
Rock.
like, I need an apprentice who's not ambitious at all, who just wants to like pet all the funny fuzzy creatures and like answer the phone calls and stuff. Like, I love that character because
schedule my meetings for me.
Yeah, because the Jedi are boring. They don't have a lot of personalities, at least in this era. Like Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, they had personalities. Anakin personality. In this era, these monkish Jedi, so boring. So then you get Mog, who's just like goofy, like he's right out of Harry Potter. It was refreshing. There was levity there. I felt like there was not enough humor in this show. And the humor that I did see, I felt like they were like, oh yeah, this is Star Wars. We have to squirt someone in the face right here. You know what I mean? And like with him, it felt like a moment out of the prequels, or with Anakin and like little Anakin talking to C-3PO when he was talking to Basil. I liked Mog. It was refreshing seeing a goofy, doofy little no high stakes Jedi, just being in the mix to show us that they do have a little bit of personality sometimes.
Just don't let him lead missions, because he ran up to May under the tree and said, "Don't move," and then grabbed his lightsaber.
Yeah, did not go well. And last but not least, of course, thank you so much, is David Ford. Thank you. He said, anybody notice Leslie Headland's Senator cameo? I mean, would you ever do a Star Wars show and not put yourself in it at some point?
Yeah, I mean, well, you've seen it with all the directors in The Mandalorian anyway.
George did it himself. Like, would you not?
Yeah, that's true.
But great point. Appreciate that. Thank you so much, everyone that sent in super chats. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. So we talked about most of this. Are there any other aspects of this episode that we haven't uncovered that you wanted to talk about, or other elements of the show? But mainly this episode, just because I think it was a satisfying finale for most fans, with a lot more open-ended things to come. But yeah, what's up?
Dumbest thing in the show, when May and Osha are trying to find a way out, and May goes, when I fell, I got sucked into this tube.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what?
Again, the dialogue, I mentioned it. The dialogue is not very good in this show.
John and I had theories that Indara saved her from the fall because she does it in the bar, and that's the tie back, and all these kind of creative avenues, and she's just like, no, I fell and got sucked into this tube.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, what?
And then she waited 16 years under the tree, apparently, too.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
That to me was just Leslie Headland doing an Empire Strikes Back reference to when Luke gets sucked into that hallway.
I think so too. I get it. I understand, but it still was dumb.
Oh yeah, there were lines in the show I'll never forget. It was the first episode, I think, when Osha's talking about how she puts out fires now and she's like a mech or whatever. Mm-hmm. And she was like, yeah, that Jedi stuff what they weren't transferable skills. And I was like, am I in an interview at my day job right now? Transferable skills?
We're gonna circle back on that.
Yeah, I know. So, but yeah,
maybe we can all get in sync of who killed who at Brendock.
Yeah, I know, right? But we have to. I mean, Star Wars is known for having clunky dialogue, and Harrison Ford always said you can write this stuff, but you can't say it. So I get that George Lucas wasn't exactly Shakespeare either. But safe to say he did write a better story, I think. And like I said, I thought the Acolyte was solid.
George's stories were fantastical to the point that there was some suspension of disbelief. To say that you fell 200 feet down a rock cliff and then got sucked into a tube and somehow no broken bones, no scrapes, not even a limp, nothing. Just magically you got sucked into this tube and you were fine. I'm sorry. Even Kylo Ren, when he fell down the pit, he tried to save himself with some type of force power. He came out looking like he had been run over 3 times. I'm just saying, it was a little much. It felt rushed. It felt like they were just say she fell. It's fine. She's okay.
And the tube was like this, by the way. It wasn't.
Yeah, it wasn't. There was
a horizontal tube. It wasn't even vertical.
I went in this way, exactly this way to the right to the tree. Amazing.
It's like the Mario Brothers green pipes. You're just
yes.
Yeah.
We have some more super chats. Steven, thank you so much. He said, always thank you. It's always enjoyable to listen, and hopefully I get to Japan. We hope you do too. I just picked up some yen today from the bank. I did a bank order for some yen because awesome. The rate right now is very good. And the lady at the bank was like, everyone's going to Japan. I was like, yeah, it's hot on TikTok and stuff, I guess. And then I started to tell her about Star Wars, and she's like, okay, have a great day. And
that's enough.
Yeah, stop talking to me. Thank you, Space Cadet. He said, the one thing that bugged me was the see you in hell Jedi. I thought Star Wars tried to avoid colloquial terms, and that just kind of bugged me. That did stick out to me. I don't know.
Because Han Solo says this in The Empire Strikes Back.
Of course, he says it on Hoth.
Well, I believe Aunt Beru also mentions hell in the first movie.
Owen does.
Owen does. Owen, okay. Yeah.
Oh, he says, or they'll be hell to pay.
Yes. So
yeah,
it's not the first time it's been mentioned.
It was. I will agree with this person though, Space Cadet. It did kind of make me go, huh, for a second, because it's like, see you in hell, because that is in character for Han Solo, but I don't see it being in character for the show.
This is gonna sound crazy. I feel like current Star Wars creators who seem to be dialed into what's being talked about online, which Leslie Headland certainly seems to know.
Oh my God, everything. She reads the fanfics. She watches the tweets.
I can't help but think that her and the writers were like, let's throw this in there and watch people get pissed off about it, and then watch other fans show them that Harrison Ford said this 45 years ago.
Yeah.
So, you know what I'm saying? Like,
but again, like I said, Harrison Ford, Han Solo, it seems in character for him to say something like this.
I think that's my favorite Han Solo line too.
Right, but I'm saying to the defense of Space Cadet, I don't know if it was a good fit in this scenario.
That's fair. I understand.
Also, what happened to Pip? I know she like reset him, but like then Osha didn't get Pip back.
I think he's like locked away or something.
So May is the Osha now. So May has Pip, right?
No, I think. Well, didn't the Jedi take him? Right?
I thought she had it back because she got out of her cuffs with it. What happened after that?
Well, she sat down with Vernestra. That was the last time we saw her, isn't it?
Oh, they just took all her things. They took all
they
her
just
stuff.
took everything. Yeah.
Put it in a plastic baggie. Put it into
It's an evidence.
An evidence locker, like in the police.
It is a murder mystery. It's in the Jedi evidence locker.
We will see it on the show floor in Japan next year, I'm sure.
Yeah. Paul, thank you so much for the super chat. Said, great show tonight. Acolyte wasn't perfect, but lots to enjoy still. Absolutely. We had a blast talking about it.
I had fun.
I can't wait to discuss Skeleton Crew with all of you when it drops. I don't care what anybody says. I'm so excited for Skeleton Crew.
I'm always excited for any new Star Wars. Like,
I know, but I feel like Skeleton Crew is like, as people have been saying, Jackie Jam, then it's like my Jackie Jam. I loved that Manny used that in his photo with her. He was like, I'm with Board and Jackie Jam. Like, I love
that.
Jake, what are your thoughts on Skeleton Crew? Are you excited for that one?
I am. I like you. I always like something new. And I really, really like the creators behind it. I think that they fit the theme and the style of show they're going for. I mean, they described it as kind of like the Goonies in space, which
Stranger Things. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't, hate that. So I'm excited. I also really like Jude Law. I like the timeline it's in too. The timeline is interesting for this type of show because of everything going on. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. I had heard a rumor that the pirates from Mando are going to be like a big part of that show. I don't know if that's true.
That.
Go ahead, say it. Go ahead, say what the pirate's name is.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You say this every time you bring it up. You say, the pirates, Kale Organa.
Oh, that's pretty clever. Where'd you get that?
Go ahead, say it.
Kale Organa. But also Jaleel White is in Skeleton Crew. So there's a lot of fun stuff to look forward to. But I am excited for that show, which I guess, Lacey, you sent me a while back. Was Jude Law or one of the showrunners or somebody said Christmas? So I know they haven't officially announced its release, but
I thought Ahmed no, it was Urkel who's in
was Jaleel White?
Yeah, he was like Christmas. Yeah, it should come up around Christmas. And Hot Topic is already putting out merch for Skeleton Crew with the kids on it, and everyone was like, "Hey, there's pins with their faces on it."
Oh, that's right. Someone did post that. Yeah, interesting.
I hope so. I think it's a perfect time when you're around with family and football games and good food and snuggle up and watch some Star Wars.
Coming of age space adventure, absolutely. But yeah, I don't have much else. I think my just closing thought is that I feel like, I don't want to say the word wasted, but I feel like now that we know Lee Jung-jae's Star Wars story journey is pretty much already over from a narrative perspective, I'm like bummed out because there were moments, like even in the fights he was doing, I don't think a lot of people were giving him credit. Like I hear a lot of people talking about these fights and stuff. He was so good. And I really enjoyed what he was doing from a combat perspective as a Jedi. and I would love to see more of that. And also, I would have loved to have seen him come out the other side of this to be the Jedi that we know he is, that was obstructed by what happened 16 years ago. Because that's the thing that's going to stick with me, because I've made mistakes in my life. Everyone has made mistakes in their life. And
have you killed someone, though?
Not that I know of.
Young girls.
Yeah. But I feel like what happened 16 years ago with Soul is just this tragic accident. He was clearly scared, out of his element, trying to do what he can to save those kids, and it just completely blew up on him. And I was just, a sliver of me was hoping he would come out the other side of this, because I remember a few weeks ago saying, like, if they do continue the series, or if they don't, I still want to see more of Master Soul after this. And
that's when I said they're going to kill him, and you were like, no, that's what I don't want.
It's a bummer. It really is a bummer. And I'm glad that they didn't kill Chimere, because they do that often, where they give us this awesome new villain and then either completely equalize them or kill them off. And
who dies, Chimere or Soul? Who would you prefer?
Soul.
Soul.
I'm gonna pick Soul too.
So. Yeah,
I think Soul had to die. He had to, for everything to continue on the way it was going. He had to.
Yeah. No, I didn't kill anybody. Jeez.
I'm just joking, because you're like, we've all made mistakes. I'm like, what kind of mistakes we talking here? He murdered someone.
I stabbed a witch in the chest down south.
When she was turning to dust.
I threw her in the lake and she didn't float, so I knew she wasn't a witch. No, it's just that used to happen a few hundred years ago. All right. So, any final thoughts on this episode or this show?
I cannot wait to see what happens next with this story. I'd be okay if it's, like we've discussed a lot tonight, if it's not Acolyte season 2, but it's something else with someone else. Like, we don't know.
Right.
But I would like to see where this story goes. I don't think they can open this door to so many different plot lines and just be like, have fun. Yep. See you at Rey Skywalker movie.
Yeah.
You're like, wait, hold on. Let's go back there. Let's see what's going on there.
Yeah, I'm with you. Jake, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm in a similar boat. I'm excited for the majority of the pieces we got that finished the series. I liked it for the most part. I think Manny Jacinto is an absolute star. Like, just put him.
His life's about to change, by the way.
Yeah,
he's already in a lot of stuff. Like, he was in 5 seconds of Top Gun Maverick, but I think he just opened a door to a whole new bucket of opportunities.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I hope that they just tighten the script up, tighten the story development up, because if you're dealing with Plagueis, that is one thing that you do not want to screw up. So
the writer room is just like, well, this has been fun. See you guys later. We're gonna work on Stranger Things. Bye. Because I know I wouldn't want to touch that.
It's going to be tough. It's going to be really, really tough, because that is one. I mean, people have been waiting for 20 plus years to see this, and you cannot fail at telling his story. Can't.
That's the one where I know he is not involved anymore, but with George Lucas, like, that's one of the ones where you're like, hey, are we
they might have called him
this one? Yeah, but I'm saying for the future, when they are going to this isn't the last time we're seeing live action Plagueis. This is just the beginning. So whether it's Acolyte season 2 or the Plagueis story or whatever, we're going to see more of this. And I think you got to go to George, or at least know what he had in mind for that character.
Yep.
And say, like, are we at least close to the mark on this one? Sort of like, Filoni has brought up a few times with Ahsoka and with the Grogu stuff, or he had mentioned in the
George
gallery.
A lot. Yeah, with all the movies they call George.
Yeah.
I'm just saying they call him for a lot of stuff, and especially with the Mandalorian with Grogu, like you were just saying, like Favreau and Filoni had to get the okay. So they're bringing Yoda into the series and Plagueis. You have to know George was in the conversation. You know that they were like, "Hey, is this okay? What do you think about
give us the pat on the back, or the thumbs up." Yeah,
the little okay for us. Do you think? Last thing, John, do you think this could lead to the Palpatine series that you've always wanted?
Oh, the fact that you're saying that means a lot to me. So thank you.
You're welcome. I set you up. Take it.
I think that is one of the more no-brainer things that they should do is the Young Palpatine series. They flirted with the Young Palpatine for episode 9 with Matt Smith, and they jettisoned that ultimately when they wanted to bring back Ian McDiarmid. So the tangible idea of it was already there in the episode 9 present time. So I think they should do it. I think that'd be so cool. They already have Plagueis and the digital framework and set up for that. So I hope so. I just hope it's not immediately after this, because I do want to see more of Chimera, like you were saying, Jake. Like, we just scratched the surface with this dude. So I don't want to go right to that, but I think eventually we will get something like that, probably to the chagrin of a lot of people. But I think if done right, that could be a very interesting series that really enriches how we view the Skywalker saga. So
yeah.
But yeah, so that's it. So we want to thank everybody for listening and watching and being a part of TRB. Jake, I want to thank you so much, man. I knew this was going to be a smooth ride. I knew it was going to be a blast. You have become a friend, and I will say this. I say this a lot, but I really mean this. You are one of the best people I've met in this space from Schmodown.
Thank you.
Jake and his wife picked me up from Burbank Airport when I flew in a couple years ago.
Wow.
A stand-up
An airport pickup?
An airport pickup. Yes.
I'm saying that is love.
Smooth one. Very smooth.
That is love. I only take
saved me like $1 billion in Uber too. So, but Jake, why don't you let everybody know where they can find you, Whiskey Jedi, anything else you got going on? I know you're on TikTok and stuff, so fire away. Let our people know where to find you, because they should, because you are the man, brother.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm at Qui-Gon Jake everywhere. 2 N's, because Liam Neeson took it before I did. And so I'm on YouTube. I do a show called The Whiskey Jedi, where it's just a name. I kind of break down whiskey and talk whiskey, and I enjoy talking movies and television, the things I'm watching, news. It's kind of.
I joined you once. It was great.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's not just Star Wars related, but Star Wars is definitely heavily involved. And then I'm very active on TikTok. I do like movie news clips, and I'll review like episodes that I watch, because I watch a ridiculous amount of television, and that is also at Qui-Gon Jake as well. So.
Right on, man. And then for me, obviously us TRB podcasts on social media, and Nerdy and Nice. Monday we'll be back.
Great show, by the way, guys.
Oh, thank you, man.
You'll have to come on that one and talk not Star Wars.
Yeah, let me know. I love watching. You guys do.
We'll talk awesome, Superman. We'll have a blast. Thank you very much, Jake. I appreciate that. Yeah, Nerdy and Nice. It's on its own pod feed, but it is on the TRB YouTube channel. So please follow us there. And then for me, Johnny Hoey on X. And my other movie podcast, Just Like the Movies. Lacey, how about you?
People can find me on social media at Lacey Gillerin, and on TikTok at It's Lacey Gillerin. And I follow Jake, and he has great videos about news, pop culture news, which I like. I like your little green screen where you're like, hey, so
moving
this
around.
thing just happened.
The pointed things. Yeah,
I point all the time, and I try not to do it, but I always do this.
I love it.
Dude, Harrison Ford made a career out of pointing, so keep pointing.
That's true. That's true. Thank you.
We do want to give a special shout out to our generals and spice runners on Patreon who keep the lights on in the base even when it's storming, as Lacey told us in the private chat throughout.
That's why I jumped. There was one point where I was like, oh my God. Like while you were talking, it's because it was so loud. It shook the house.
Well, we survived. So
I know my power went out earlier. Yeah.
But a big shout out to our generals: Carmelo, John Reese, Jetta Rosewater, Frank Grande, Nick Kratz, Chris Morales, Brian Smith, Danny, Mike Ramori, Brendan McLaughlin, Sneaky Zebra, Dave Hornack, Jolton Jedi DiMaggio, and Carlin Cormier, and the Silver Screen Spice Runners: David Probus, Neil Shaw, Kendall Gellner, Andrew Staley, Jeremy Myers, and the Fort Worth Inn. And everybody listens to TRB, has fun with us talking Star Wars, because it's not hard to have a good time talking about Star Wars, even with stuff you may not love that much. That's how we like to do it around here. So if you dig it, tell your friends. And let's keep packing the base every week. We appreciate it. But we'll be back next week on our regularly scheduled time on Thursdays, now that the Acolyte is over. So TRB Live is coming back with you a week from tomorrow. Please remember to submit your guesses tomorrow at noon for the Sith code. Again, today's number was 1. My apologies for skipping that before. It's been a day.
And Lacey's score and John's favorite moment, all that stuff.
let's just reiterate all that. Yes, let's keep doing that. But thank you all very, very much. And Nerdy and Nice Monday and all that good stuff. So from the three of us here at AcoNight, until next time, we will see you around, kids.
Oh.